don't remember running. I remember the hallway of the Carlisle building, the cable disappearing into the wall, the grid pattern pressed into the baseboard like a signature, and then something shifted in the room, a pressure change, a sound beneath hearing, and every part of me that was still animal moved before the thinking part could catch up. I was out of the building and 4 blocks south before I became aware of my own legs again. I found an unlocked laundromat on Henderson and hid in the back behind a row of industrial dryers, pressed flat against the wall, breathing into my sleeve to muffle the sound. I stayed there for 2 hours, maybe 3. Nothing came through the door. Nothing moved outside the window that I could see. Eventually, my heartbeat slowed. Eventually, the cold of the tile floor worked its way through my jacket and told me I needed to move or lose warmth I couldn't afford to lose. I picked up my bag. I stood up. I kept moving. There is a particular kind of exhaustion that goes beyond the body. It settles somewhere behind the sternum, a heaviness that sleep doesn't fix, that food doesn't touch. It's the exhaustion of carrying information that's too heavy for the container you're carrying it in. Marcus dead. Zone 7 breached. A trap built by something that understood radio signals and human psychology and the specific desperation that makes a lonely survivor reach toward any voice that sounds human. I walk south through the fog and let all of it sit in me without trying to organize it. Some things need to be felt before they can be understood. I made it back to my building by early afternoon. The apartment felt different now. Smaller. Marcus's door was still closed. I had not touched it and would not, but the awareness of what was behind it changed the dimensions of the place, made the walls press closer. I set my bag down, drank half a liter of water, ate crackers without tasting them. Then I turned on the radio. I've been using the radio in short intervals to preserve the batteries. 5 minutes on, 20 off. Never long enough to find much beyond static and the occasional looping emergency broadcast. This time, on the third sweep of the dial, I found something new. Military frequency. The signal was clean, professional equipment, properly amplified, the kind of transmission that doesn't degrade the way civilian signals do. But the broadcast itself was old. A timestamp read at the beginning by an automated voice. Day 30400 hours. Day 3. This was day 7. The voice that followed was male, official, measured, but underneath the control of it, like bedrock under thin soil, there was something else. I turned the volume low and listened carefully. This is Emergency Management Directive 7, issued under authority of the Joint Command. All personnel are advised that containment of the Zone 7 subjects has failed as of Day 2, 2300 hours. Repeat, containment failed at 2300 hours on Day 2. Day 2, while I was still trying to understand why the city was quiet, before Marcus, before the checkpoints, before any of it, subjects have demonstrated accelerated adaptive behavior beyond initial projections. Behavioral modeling has been revised. Revised threat assessment classifies subjects as Category 4, organized, communicative, and capable of environmental manipulation. Environmental manipulation. The trap in the Carlisle building rose in my mind. Pre-wired. Patient. All personnel operating within the quarantine boundary are advised that standard containment protocols are no longer effective. Effective immediately. All resources are to be redirected to outer perimeter reinforcement. The interior of the quarantine zone is to be considered. A long pause. In that pause, I heard something that the officer recording the message probably didn't intend to include. A sound in the background. Voices talking fast and low at the edges of the room. The particular flattened urgency of people receiving information and compressing their reaction to it. Then the officer's voice again, quieter now, different, is to be considered unrecoverable. The broadcast ended. Static, unrecoverable, not dangerous, not compromised, unrecoverable. The word they use for a vessel too damaged to save, a patient too far gone to bring back, something already belonging to the other side of a line. They hadn't failed to contain Zone 7. They had decided the city wasn't worth the cost of trying. I sat with the radio in my lap for a long time. 4 days ago, while I was counting cans and refilling water bottles and watching convoys roll through my street, the people responsible for this decision were already writing us off. Were already building the outer perimeter. Were already turning their attention to what came after. After us, the living people still inside, still moving through this fog, still making fires and rationing food and holding on to the idea that help was coming. We were already classified, already filed, unrecoverable. I thought about Marcus, the thing he said in those last hours, not the revelation about the creatures moving in coordinated groups that had been his last transmission outward. I was thinking about what came before it. Quieter, more personal. He'd asked me, during one of the longer silences, what I did before all this. Normal question. The kind you ask when what's around you is too large to discuss directly. I told him. Freelance work. Kept to myself. Small life. The way you describe a life that you built to be manageable and are only now understanding might have been built to be invisible. He'd nodded. Didn't say anything for a moment. Then, invisible is maybe the right thing to have been. I hadn't understood it then. He meant surviving looked different than it used to. Used to mean strength, resources, community. Now it meant something quieter, something that didn't attract attention, something that understood how to be small in a world that had started hunting by signal, movement, sound, warmth, the specific radio frequency of a human voice, reaching out toward hope, invisible. I wrote it in the notebook and underlined it twice. Around sunset. I knew the time only by the faint shift from gray fog to gray dark, the city having no other clock to offer. I went to the roof. I needed to see the scope of it. I needed to understand what I was inside of. The roof access door opened onto a flat tar surface edged with a low parapet. The fog was thinner up here, above the street level where it pooled heaviest. I could see farther from the roof than I had in days. I walked to the north edge and looked out. The city spread in all directions, its skyline dark, the towers black shapes against a darker sky, no light anywhere except the faint residual glow of emergency systems running on backup power, still blinking in distant windows like the city's dying pulse. I looked north toward the medical district, toward Zone 7, and then I saw them. Not one, not three, hundreds. They moved through the fog below the roofline like a tide, slow, systematic, spread across the width of every street I could see. Flowing south, not running, not scattered, but coordinated in the way a murmuration is coordinated, the way a river is coordinated, the way a river is coordinated, each individual part moving with the whole, every gap filled, every angle covered. And they were lit, faintly from within. A cold, pale luminescence, barely visible through the fog, like bioluminescence in dark water, not glowing enough to illuminate, just enough to see. Eyes. Hundreds of eyes, moving through the streets in perfect formation. They were not searching anymore. They knew what was here. They had already mapped it, already studied it, already run the grid. They were not searching. They were arriving. I backed away from the parapet edge until my back hit the roof access door, stood there with my hand on the handle, and looked out at the city that used to be mine. The notebook voice in my head. The part that's been documenting all of this, trying to find logic in what's happening, went quiet for the first time since day one. Some things resist narration, some things you just have to witness. I went back downstairs, locked every lock, pushed the kitchen table against the door, turned off everything that could be turned off, every light, every device, the radio, the camp stove. I sat in the absolute dark, and I thought about visibility, about what it meant to be seen. And then I heard something that stopped every thought in my head simultaneously, from inside the building, not outside, not the street, not the roof, from somewhere below me in the stairwell. Footsteps, 2 sets, moving upward, whatever came to the barricade from Zone 7. It doesn't just hunt from the outside, it follows you in, it follows you home. Day 8, if there is one.